it's my first time doing this in my room at night. Also, I have a new tattoo, which is of Iroh, the last Airbender's character Iroh, from that cartoon, which I love. And yeah, so just wanted to say more about some of my reflections on like my oppressive behaviors and trying to reduce them. Therefore, I posted a video about some of my racial reflections and reflections on racism and my racism, and also how that kind of manifests in the world around me, and also how my social anxiety is playing into that quite badly, I think. And it's been really interesting comments I've had, which is, yeah, I'm really pleased with them, basically. I'll show you what I mean. But yeah, it's hard to express really, because I also want to like stay away from like, oh, I'm such a good person, because that's kind of one of the things I'm critiquing, is like white people's need to be like good people all the time is causing some of the issues. Yeah, not that there's anything wrong necessarily with trying to be good and like, well, you know, acting in line with your values, but we need to acknowledge that that's not going to be 100% of the time, and that we have to be reflective and continually learning and continually being accountable and so on and so forth, just like anyone else, right? That is my hope with kind of being vulnerable, by saying, yeah, I am shit sometimes and I can cause harm, and regardless of intent or whatever, like it's still like something that is a problem and something that I need to reduce and want to. And I think you can really do that with like really deep self-reflection, basically, and learning. And I really feel really blessed that I'm in a white awareness group that tackles these things, because white people don't really understand most of the time. I would say like 95% of the time, like how liberating it is for white people as well to tackle racism and their internalized racism, because it fucks us up as well. And it causes, yeah, it's just shit for everyone, but especially people from the global racial majority. I explained that in the last video. Yeah, so that's part of why I'm being vulnerable about this and being so explicit about this, and kind of trying to, like, even though it's really not socially acceptable to do this, like talk about my reflections on my racism and racist behaviors, and trying to therefore reduce it in the future. But it's not just racism. I mean, it applies to all devalued groups that I can struggle with in terms of just worrying so much about being oppressive. But I was just focusing on racism and race then. I feel like it's one of the most obvious issues, basically, because you're pressured as a white person to be like 100% good and like never be racist and all this stuff. And like it can be quite existentially quite hard for white people to like engage with this, because they're just used to being, not having to think about this and being the default and thinking of themselves as a good person and blah, 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 blah. But it's a bit difficult because you don't necessarily want to be known as someone who is racist either, but it's like, well, everyone is. And so in order to talk about it, it's quite hard. And like, and yeah, same with any, so I can struggle with any kind of oppressive dynamics. So like I worry about being ableist and transphobic and homophobic and everything. So, and classist and so on and so forth. So it's not just like specific to this, but I feel like this is something that is quite intense for me, that I'm trying to reduce quite a lot in general, but also with race in particular. So yeah, and I do think it takes a lot of labour and reflection and knowledge and everything else. So hopefully this is helpful for other white people, basically, because, well, hopefully helpful for everyone, but this is specifically, like, I don't think people of the global racial majority, I don't think it's their job to educate me and to try and help me and to do anything with this, really. I mean, maybe I hope that it's actually quite hopeful to hear a white person try and get into it like this and try to really get into the issues so that they can change them within themselves. And like, but I don't want to minimize that might be also quite triggering and quite hard to hear as well. So yeah, just be careful and obviously listen or don't listen to whatever's best for you. What I mean by, like, I think it's the responsibility of white people to support each other about racial issues and racism and white supremacy. So obviously there can be like inter-race like support, but like it's not the person who's undervalued or the group that's undervalued job to help the privileged group. Help the privileged group in that. I haven't even got to like I was like, this is just like the introduction of what I was trying to say. Being autistic is fucking tiring. And another thing is like, it is a bit difficult because I am generally quite anxious and like weird and freaked out by like just generally as well. So it is quite hard to distinguish what's going on sometimes. in terms of my oppressive behaviors. Like, I'm like, am I feeling anxious because I'm just generally anxious, or am I also feeling anxious? Like, is there another layer where this oppressive OCD, where I worry about being harmful to others, is impacting things? It's probably both. Yeah, but there has to be like nuance there.
So I was really happy with this comment, because this is part of why I'm talking about things so explicitly. So it says, I think the world would be a better place if more people were this reflective about their motivations and mindset. So what I'm trying to say is, like, I think being very reflective about this can really help, like, change the conversation, and hopefully more people will be like this.
So I was quite happy with that comment, because that's kind of the intention of trying to just start these conversations, because they're basically non-existent. Like, I've never seen a white person really talk about it like this, apart from in these very direct groups, which are quite insular. And yeah, so I do think it's white people's responsibility to work on this, and I do think therefore we should help each other. And I also think that even though it's hard, because we've all been programmed to be so outraged by racism and sexism and everything else, I would say mostly racism. Basically, I'm trying to explain that with this support that privileged groups should give each other, there are going to be times where people are going to say stuff, or, you know, aren't going to be perfect about it, is what I'm saying. And there is a tendency in these groups, in the past, like, I have like talked about something I noticed about my interactions, like, and then I realised with some of my global racial majority friends, and this is like 10 years ago now, but yeah, that I noticed that I was using more colloquial words with them, and I was like, oh, that's weird, like, that's fucking wrong, and like racist, and, you know, problematic. But it was good that I noticed that, right? Like, not many people would notice that, and I think because I'm autistic, I can notice very minutiae behaviours that maybe other white folk wouldn't notice. And even like maybe some people from the global racial majority wouldn't notice either. Do you know what I mean? But it's important information. But like the white person who ended up being a bit of a fucking asshole in other areas actually, but they were like, you know, like had a big go at me about it, when the whole point of the session is like, yeah, like, it's really not helpful. Like, even though it's understandable in many respects, but the whole point of the group is for like white people to like get this shit out there. You know, they need to express what is going on, and then they need to move on and reduce that and stop it, and so on and so forth, right? In the white awareness group I'm in now, like, they make a conscious, like, clear effort to be like, look, we're all on different stages of this journey, so like, we're here to non-judgmentally support each other through this, and that is just much more effective. Yeah, because it didn't really help. And it's also very like ironic. It's just like, hold on, Hollis, you didn't say anything about any of your reflections as a white person. Yeah, they were a massive asshole actually, but anyway, just in general as well. Yeah, so it might seem counterintuitive, because yes, like, this stuff is not good. Like, it's bad, and it's horrible and destructive, and so on and so forth. And we need a space where people can like express the things that they regret, and things that they're like, actually, that's a problem, and maybe they haven't even noticed before. And it's just going to be much harder if the other people around them are going to be massively judgmental and horrible to them about it. It's going to like shut them down and make them not do that. Do you see what I mean? So it's important for the privileged group who are addressing whatever issues you're looking at, whether that be racism or transphobia or whatever else, to just give them a bit of space to process this stuff, right? And obviously, like, give them the feedback and be like, yeah, like, you know, that sounds quite racist or destructive. Like, can you think of ways that you can reduce that?